Good evening, everyone. This is the regular meeting of the DeKalb City Council, October 9, 2017. Roll call, please.
Jacobson?
Here.
Fanouken?
Here.
Marquardt?
Here. Here.
Fagan?
Here.
Noriko?
Here.
Verbeck?
Here.
Favor?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
8 present.
Police Officer Nachman from the DeKalb Police Force will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like now to ask our aldermen if there are any additions or deletions to the agenda as we move towards approval of the agenda. I'd ask for a motion then to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Fanouken?
Yes.
Marquardt?
Yes.
Fagan?
Yes.
Noriko?
Yes.
Verbeck?
Yes.
Favor?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
8 yes.
There are no public hearings scheduled for tonight during our regular city council meeting. Moving on to item number E under the agenda. We do have a Proudly DeKalb presentation tonight. Christine Wang, who is the speaker of the NIU Student Association, would like to make a presentation. Christine, if you'd come to the podium, please, and make your presentation, please.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me time to speak to you about an incredibly important issue to the students of Northern Illinois University. As Mayor Smith stated, my name is Christine Wang. I'm currently a senior double major in human resource management and political science with a minor in Spanish. I'm currently serving my second term as the Speaker of the Student Association Senate. The Student Association has relaunched the hashtag No Shame campaign this year. The hashtag No Shame campaign is a campaign that was started in 2015 by former SA President Nathan Loopstein. This campaign is aimed at destigmatizing mental health issues and bringing mental health awareness to light. By raising awareness about resources available to people who struggle with mental illness and emotional distress, we aim to stimulate positive discussion and to eliminate negative connotations surrounding mental health issues. We want to make it okay for people to talk about mental health and to educate people regarding mental health issues. 1 in 5 Americans experience a mental health issue, and nearly 1 in 25 adults in America live with a serious mental illness. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the U.S., and 90% of those who die by suicide have an underlying mental illness. Last month, September, was National Suicide Awareness Month. Last month, we also launched our No Shame campaign. Suicide is not a cause of the mental health epidemic that we have today. It is a symptom. There is a distinct lack of resources and awareness available to those who suffer from mental illness. Nearly 60% of adults with a mental illness do not or did not receive mental health services in the previous year. At NIU in 2015, 46.5% of NIU students surveyed felt that academics have been traumatic or very difficult to handle. And in that same year, 51.6% of NIU students felt things were hopeless. As leaders of the Student Association, it is our goal to ensure that the students of NIU are provided with every resource available for their success. People who suffer from mental health issues deserve to have their voice heard. We plan to make a change by not only raising awareness through education and training at NIU, but also through policy change. We are working closely with policymakers at NIU to change academic policy to be more inclusive of non-physical illnesses and to bring better resources to NIU. Our focus is not only on NIU, but also on our community. Untreated mental illness not only has far-reaching individual effects, but also brings a heavy economic and societal impact to our society. Depression is a leading cause of disability worldwide, and serious mental illness costs America $193.2 billion in lost earnings every single year. And as part of the DeKalb community and the NIU DeKalb University, I strongly urge members of the community to support the #NoShame campaign and to support people suffering from mental health issues and mental distress without judgment and with compassion. To those in the community who are listening, I want to end with this last statement. You are not alone. You are loved and cared about, and we are here to support you. No matter what you suffer from, it is okay to seek help. It is okay to talk about it. Mental health is not something to be afraid of or something to hide, and like any physical illness, it is something that must be treated, taken care of, and respected. And if you or someone you know is struggling, call the Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. And please take the #NoShame campaign. I believe it was placed in front of you, to please take that pledge and learn more about mental illness and how you can help yourself and your loved ones. I'll end by reciting the pledge. I pledge to see the person, not the condition. I pledge to educate and promote awareness about mental illness and recovery. I pledge to create a better tomorrow by modeling healthy coping skills. I pledge to reach out to, listen to, and accept someone living with emotional distress. I pledge to ask for help if I am suffering or think I am suffering. I pledge to make it okay to get help for someone who is suffering. I pledge to start the conversation and/or share my story. I pledge to end the silence and to stand up for mental health. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yes, Christine, I have a couple questions before I turn it over to the City Council. You talked about COM University. What community agencies have you had a discussion with already, or do you intend to do that with? I'm thinking of the police department, I'm thinking of the Ben Gordon Center, et cetera, et cetera.
So right now we're focusing on launching it internally within NIU first and getting a good ground before we reach out to the community. However, some things that are on our list right now is to reach out to the Kishwaukee Health System. I know it's Northwestern Medicine now, but to reach out to them and see what kind of resources there are available. Currently, the biggest issue that we're trying to face is psychiatric care. Psychiatric care.
Okay.
There is a distinct lack of psychiatric care that is available to people. I know from personal experience that a lot of times psychiatric care is not covered under insurance in a lot of ways, or if it is, if you are able to find someone who is under your insurance, it could take up to a month or 2 months to get an appointment. People who are suicidal or who are dealing with mental illness or some other form of severe mental illness cannot wait 1 month for a psychiatric appointment. And so we're looking into seeing what kind of ways can we expand psychiatric care, not only to NIU students, but also to the community as well.
Absolutely, it's so important. I mean, I hear Gene Lowry, our police chief, talk about that being one of the scenarios, if you will, mental illness that confronts his officers each and every week. Mm-hmm. Maybe each and every day, I don't know, Gene. We have a new hospital organization, Northwest Medicine. We need to be chatting with them. You do. Ben Gordon Center, which is part and parcel now of Northwestern Medicine. So I appreciate you making that and reading the pledge. Any other comments from the City Council on Christine's presentation? Alderman Noriko.
Thank you very much for your very articulate and informed presentation. I would hope that people listening, in the citizen audience, take your words to heart.
Thank you.
And I wish you good luck and that your voice is heard.
Thank you. It's appreciated.
Any other comments from City Council? If not, Christine, thank you very much.
Could I address?
Yes, the Police Chief Lowry.
Thank you, Christine, first and foremost. I would like to say that, we did receive a Department of Justice grant for $75,000 to begin the process of planning a collaborative law enforcement mental health response to the behavioral health issues that we face. If you'd like, I can give you some information, and maybe we can bring you or representatives from NIU to the table as we prepare that grant to be acted upon in its first year.
Sure, that would be great. Thank you.
And Mayor, if I could also add that,
Sure.
Actually, I'm wearing one of the bands that Christine and the NIU students are distributing, the #NoShame campaign, and I did sign one of the pledges. So at your place sitting for both the council members and the staff members was the pledge. Alderman Jacobson has the silver pen, so if any of you are interested in signing the pledge before Christine leaves, if you could please sign that and then pass it on down. I think it's coming that way over by Alderman Faber, and we'll be proud to give those to Christine. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your support.
Alderman Jacobson has dutifully passed that white pen down. I've already had it. Kate, you had it, so move it. It'll move right down the thing. Here we go. Any other comments? Thank you, Christine. Appreciate your comments. Appreciate your coming tonight. Okay, item B under item 1 tonight on our agenda. We have the Annie Glidden North Revitalization Plan Task Force update. We have 2 council liaisons to the 30-member community task force working alongside Camaros on this. And I'd ask our 1st and 2nd Ward Alderman, Alderman Jacobson and Alderman Finucane, to provide an update on where we are with Annie Glidden North.
All right, Mr. Mayor, so I'm going to report on the task force meeting itself. While not all the members were there, about 85% were, and I've talked with several of city staff to improve the turnout for those meetings in the future. So basically, the meeting went along with Camaros making a presentation regarding their background and some of their previous projects and what they've discovered already in the neighborhood. As we went along, each participant was asked what they wanted to see as we moved along and what they or their organization brought to the table to help resolve some of the issues. We had several individuals that were made almost immediate low-hanging fruit suggestions, but one individual in particular wanted us to include suburban estates and suburban apartments, even though they're not within the city limits, because they're just a part of that neighborhood, even though they're outside the city. Just some of the simple low-hanging fruits to have safe crosswalks on Annie Glidden, better lighting either through more lights or tree trimming. And one individual expressed some concern regarding the amount of Section 8 housing in the neighborhood. And I look forward to the next meeting and the task force continuing on. I don't believe the date has been publicly announced yet, so I'll just let it go at that.
Thank you, Alderman Finucane. Alderman Jacobson.
We held our first community meeting. Every great project always has its first step, and I think we effectively accomplished that. Well, we had hoped for 50 or 60. I would say there was 150 plus, close to 200 in attendance. We packed the hall. We had to overflow, and luckily our fire chief was there to make sure we had stayed under our fire capacity. One of the comments that I think resonated with me out of the meeting were, I know there was one specific table, there was a significant showing of fraternity students at the meeting. Almost 50 came and showed up from one organization. One of the comments that was jokingly mentioned in the hall was that a lot of the people at that table had lived in the same neighborhood for 3, 5, even 10 years and had never met their neighbors that were sitting at their table with them. So again, as part of this effort, I saw benefit in that clearly, that coming together and hearing different perspectives, both at the task force meeting and the community meeting, people started to get open and honest and a little raw in some cases. And I think that's going to be necessary to facilitate moving forward and having some difficult discussions in the neighborhood to really understand the perspectives of the people that live there. So to see them come out and provide some of their perspective, come out and provide some of their ideas, come out and provide their time, certainly, to participate in the process, it was a start. It was the beginning, and I thought it was a good one. So I look forward to where we go from here. I think lots of work has to be done, and we kicked off that effort. So let's keep heading in that direction and see where it takes us.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I just want to add one other quick comment. Because these are both official city meetings, we have to be very cognizant of Open Meeting Act violations. And I know there were some questions raised afterwards why we had asked some of the task force members to leave the community meeting. And as we had been instructed, it was really that I think only 8 members of the task force can be present at one time. So at one point before the meeting started, there were more than 8. We asked a couple of them to leave. A few more of the task force members came in who had not been at the afternoon meeting, but again, through staff's efforts, we made certain that we stayed below that, so there were no Open Meeting Act violations.
Thank you. I appreciate your efforts, Alderman Jacobson and Alderman Fanouken. Any discussion from any of our city council folks or any observations? What have you heard about Annie Glidden North since we kicked it off last week? Kate?
I'm certainly very impressed with the number of people who participated, and I appreciate the time that Alderman Jacobson and Alderman Fanouken are putting into this project. I have heard some questions about televising the community meetings. Do you see value? Did you hear discussion about that? Certainly a meeting that has, upwards of 150 people would be pretty difficult to ensure, televising. And I also know at community meetings, it can be really difficult to hear people. Not everybody speaks as loudly as I do, so.
That's a question that we'll have to defer to city staff.
I'll answer it this way. In regards to the task force meeting, as far as the logistics to be able to televise off-site, we currently don't have that capability unless you want to do it as basic as one of us taking our cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
I was at the task force meeting and sat just behind some of the task force members, and I had a hard time hearing them in the room, and there was at least a microphone initially for the speaker. So I think that there's the first issue is making sure that when you're in the room, if you're able to hear it. But I know Alderman Jacobson raised that question at the end of the task force meeting, so we will address it with two aldermen as we move forward on the next meeting as to how to handle that. I think the other thing that I have raised with others when they've asked me this question is the sensitivity of some of the items that are going to be discussed there and the members that are serving on the task force, and whether they're going to feel comfortable sharing some of the challenges that they see in that neighborhood if they know that they're being videoed. We know that it is an open meeting. We are taking the appropriate steps of doing those minutes and making sure that the minutes are taken and that we record what happens there. But I would just be very sensitive, and I'm being consistent in what I've said to everyone, is that I would, if you go forward and tape it in some capacity, is that the majority of the task force supports that. But right now, in this room, we are really good at videotaping the meetings that happen in this room because the cameras are mounted in the ceiling. We're all speaking into microphones. When you go off-site, we just don't have that technical ability. My recommendation to Alderman Jacobson was if there is a desire to videotape, we should approach Northern Illinois University to see, with their wealth of background and talent that they have there and equipment, as to whether they could do it. If it's as simple as an audio recording, we can do the audio, but if you want city staff to videotape it, we're going to be very low-key. I'm pointing to cell phone because it'll be as basic as that. We just don't, quite frankly, have the video capabilities.
And actually, the question I had heard was related to the community meeting, which I would imagine would be even more difficult in terms of the technical piece.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the former journalist in me initially said, we ought to be recording these meetings, and then I was informed that there are sensitivities, if you will, during meetings like that. Dave used the expression raw conversation, and I think maybe some folks just aren't as comfortable. So what I'd like you to do, Bill and Dave, perhaps to chat with staff, do what you can to see if, in fact, over the course of the Annie Glidden North Revitalization Plan, that we make some either substantive changes as it relates to recording and or tweak what we are doing now to see what we can do. Does that sound fair enough?
I think we can hold some conversation with staff and see if anything is possible.
Great, wonderful. Any other comments on Annie Glidden North? If not, thank you very much. I appreciate your efforts and the response of this community on that revitalization plan. Okay, we have a special presentation tonight, and I'm going to read a proclamation, if I may, And then I'm going to ask our Deputy Fire Chief, Jim Zarek, to lead a contingent of his folks to come in to accept the proclamation. And may I read this, please, Jim? I, Jerry Smith, Mayor of the City of DeKalb, do hereby proclaim October 8 through 14, 2017 as Fire Prevention Week throughout this community. I urge all the people of DeKalb to develop a home fire escape plan with all members of the household and practice it twice a year, and to participate in the many public safety activities and efforts of DeKalb's fire and emergency services during Fire Prevention Week 2017. Jim?
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Yeah, this year's theme is Every Second Counts, which works on the idea that you need all the time you can to be able to escape a residence when there's a fire there. Hopefully most people are notified either through actually seeing it or working smoke detectors, which is always a good thing to have in any home. With me tonight to accept this proclamation will be Shift Commander tonight, Battalion Chief Donnie Fallhaber, and Engine 1's crew, which is Lieutenant Jim Cronny and firefighter paramedic Sean Freeman.
And as you shake our councilman's hands, I'm going to have a signed and sealed proclamation. There you go. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your service. Thanks for your work. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Why did we just not send it to my calendar? I just got told by your, it's not official. Because this one, is it the one that we're going to go with the students?
Once again, thank you, Mayor, City Council.
Thank you,
He's got a dinner scheduled.
Jim. I appreciate it. And thank you for all you guys do. Really appreciate it. Okay, moving on. Approval of the mayor's appointments. I have no appointments tonight. However, we do have a vacancy. We were informed this past week that we had a resignation from Jason Chrome on the Citizens Finance Advisory Committee. That is a critical advisory committee. I have several names that have been already suggested to me, but I would not only ask the city council, but anybody in our audience, television audience, if you know someone who wants to give back to this community in a very significant way, as is the case with all our boards and commissions, please contact me here within the next several days if you can. Okay, public participation. I have nobody who has signed up for any comments on items not listed on the agenda. Does anybody want to speak to any items not listed on our agenda? If not, we'll move to our consent agenda omnibus vote. As you may recall, all items listed on this consent agenda are enacted by one motion. There is no separate discussion unless requested by a council member, in which event the items will be removed from the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that any of our aldermen wish to remove? If not, let me read the following items separately and in their entirety for you. And this is going to be by omnibus vote. Number 1, approval of city council minutes. Minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of September 11, 2017. B, minutes of the regular City Council meeting of September 11, 2017. Number 2, receive and file accounts payable and payroll through October 9, 2017 in the amount of $2,413,462.60. I'd ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Fanouken?
Yes.
Markwart?
Yes.
Fagan?
Yes.
Noriko?
Yes.
Verbic?
Yes.
Favor?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
8 yes.
Okay, we move now items for separate action. Approval in omnibus form of Resolutions 2017-116, Children's Learning Center, $10,000. 2017/117, Elder Care Services, $5,000. 2017-118, Hope Haven, $12,000. 2017-119, Safe Passage, $15,000. And 2017-120, Voluntary Action Center, $18,000. Authorizing agreements for Community Development Block Grant Year 24 Public Services Funding from April 1, 2017 through March 31, 2018 in the amount of $60,000.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, before we vote, I'd like to ask Community Development Director Joe Ellen Charlton to speak on this item, including letting the folks know why Alderman Fagan left the room.
I'm not sure I
can address that one.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Joe Ellen, I thought we
I'm
had
sorry.
I thought we had this choreographed perfectly, and we didn't. Dean?
I missed.
Alderman Fagan has a professional relationship with one of the entities that receives funding from the city, so to avoid any concern over his involvement in this, he has recused himself from participation.
And we appreciate Alderman Fagan for doing that. Now, Joe Ellen?
Thank you. I'll take it from here. As you mentioned, Mayor, the attached resolutions would approve public services funding from the Community Development Block Grant Program for 5 projects in the amount of $60,000. You may note in the memo that 15% of our allocation this year actually comes to $61,350. The difference in the numbers is because when we first started sending these applications out, we didn't yet have our allocation from HUD. We just received that within the last couple of months. They were very far behind this year. As you can see, the program year started April 1. We didn't get our allocation until several months after that. So a couple of the items that have been on your agenda in the last meetings were to finalize these programs. Compared to last year, just real shortly, we did have 8 programs last year funded as part of this program. And for those of you that were on the council, you may recall that we received direction from HUD to start to focus our financial projects on fewer projects with greater funding. We had several projects in the past granting $2,000 or $3,000, and there's a lot of requirements to be met, and they really wanted us to focus on higher impact projects. So this year we did drop 3 of the programs that were funded from this program from last year. One of them was Community Gardens, who didn't even submit an application for this funding this year. The other 2 were RAMP and CASA projects. They both had very small funding last year in the amounts of $2,000 and $3,000 respectively. One of the things moving forward, as you know, is we have human services funding monies in the community development budget. So moving forward, our community development specialist, Joanne Rouse, will be recommending that those folks pursue those funding for their project in lieu of the HUD funding. So with that brief background, I'm happy to answer any questions the council might have.
Alderman Noriko.
I noticed that the Children's Learning Center requested $20,000 and the recommended amount is $10,000, and Elder Care Services requested $14,500 and recommended was $5,000. And I'm wondering why the significant difference, realizing that you only had 60,000 and people's requests were higher, but those 2 seem to take, the most significant cuts.
So both of those programs had increases over the amount of funding that they were actually granted last year.
Oh, okay.
So for example, last year, the Children's Learning Center only received $5,000 in funding, and Elder Care Services only received $3,374.
Okay.
The remaining organizations all received the same amount that they received last year.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Favor.
So, thank you for your comprehensive introduction, because I was going to ask, I know that we have this money available, but we also have additional funds that we give to local organizations. And off of Alderman Noriko's Question, do we give additional funds to like the CLC, the Children's Learning Center? Do we give, outside of this block grant, is there additional funds that we give through the Community Development Fund? Or
We can. I mean, there's nothing that restricts an entity from receiving funds from the other program if they're in this program. It's been a pretty continuous amount of funding in the other program. There hasn't been a lot of publicity that goes out about it that's different. We've had the same people receiving funds pretty consistently over the years. Joanne and I have been talking about potential changes to that program. Her time is pretty limited in the city. She's only here 2 days a week, so the amount of time she can spend working on developing programs and doing things is limited. But that is something that we're looking at. We're just now starting to process and send out those notices to the same individuals, and like I said, we're going to target RAMP and CASA, and obviously anyone else is encouraged and invited to submit any interest in these funding that they might be interested in.
in terms of reporting, is it this group as well, or is it just the other group that we, as a city, request that they provide is it annual or semi-annual report?
Both have their own reporting requirements. I think the city has typically had more concerns about certain entities that haven't followed up on the reporting in the other program. HUD's pretty strict about their
Sure.
reporting requirements.
Okay, and I think as a council, we give direction in those entities that don't report.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, these CDBG, these community development block grants, Tony, I have to sign off on those, and I know that there is a set of rules and regulations, if you will, on that, as there is on our Health and Human Services funding. To answer your first question, yes, a couple of these agencies, to my knowledge, had also received funding from our Health and Human Services. And I think that will probably continue. And to your point, Alderman Norrico, as the executive director of the Community Foundation for 10 years, I know how difficult it is to award grants. You get so many requests and all that. So I think the fact that those two agencies that you alluded to actually received an increase, it probably is pretty good based on a very good application process, I would suspect. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve this resolution. Roll call, please.
Markwart,
Yes.
Noriko,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Fanouken,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
7 yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, Joellen.
Thank you.
We can now retrieve Alderman Fagan from the bowels of the City Hall. Okay, item number 2, Resolution 2017-121, authorizing intergovernmental agreement with the Illinois Department of Transportation on behalf of the DeKalb Sycamore Area Transportation Study for Metropolitan Planning Organization funding from July 1, 2017 through June 30, 2018, in an amount not to exceed $266,539. I'd ask for a motion.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, I am going to ask Public Works, I'm going to ask Transportation Planner Brian Dixon, who's at the podium, to speak to this item. Brian?
Yes, I'm sure you've heard us mention DSATs quite a bit over the years, and what we do is all the transportation planning for the DeKalb metropolitan region. What an MPO is basically the federal government back in the 60s created this concept of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, that it would be a body that exists in metropolitan areas over 50,000 in population, and the community, the different communities in that metropolitan region get together to look at transportation in the region and try to develop a regional view of transportation rather than each community doing their own transportation planning. So the DeKalb metropolitan region went over 50,000 in 2000, and at that point, the DeKalb Sycamore Area Transportation Study was formed. And so each year, the federal government provides grant funding for the operations of the MPOs, for staff salaries, office expenses, special studies to look at transportation in the region, and we are mandated to maintain a long-range transportation plan for the region, what is called the Transportation Improvement Program, which is a listing of all of the federally funded transportation projects that are moving forward in the next 4 years. Active transportation plan for bike and pedestrian transportation in the region, and recently we finished the transit development plan looking at transit in the region. So this year we were allocated $266,539 for the operations of the MPO. 80% of that is Federal Highway Administration funds and Federal Transit Administration funds. And then IDOT for this year is providing the 20% local match. So there is no local match required from any of the member organizations, which I will note are the City of DeKalb, the City of Sycamore, the Town of Cortland, the DeKalb County, Northern Illinois University, and IDOT District 3. So we are coming, as the city is the fiscal agent for the MPO, we are coming to City Council to approve our contract with IDOT to seek reimbursement for state fiscal year 2018, which is from July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018. And as noted with our DOPE contract, similarly, it's retroactive to all of our expenses that we have incurred since July 1st.
Thank you, Brian. Any discussion or questions of Brian? If not, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Fagan,
Yes.
Noriko,
Yes.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Fanouken,
Yes.
Markwart,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
8 yes.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. Item number 3, ordinance 2017-041, amending Chapter 17, Administrative Hearing Procedure by adding Section 17.08, Appeal of License Denial, and Section 17.09, Standards for Consideration of Licensure. This is the first reading of this ordinance. I would ask for a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I'd like to ask our City Attorney, Dean Frieders, to address this item, please. Dean?
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance relates to licenses, permits, and permissions that are granted at the staff level without requiring the consent or approval of the City Council. There are a couple things that we're looking to do with this, all oriented around improving our process for issuing permits and licenses at the staff level. One issue that has come up a couple times in the past 12 months is we've had applicants for a permit or for a given permission that have disagreed with the staff decision that was made and have wanted to have some sort of review of that process. And current city code, for a majority of the licenses that we have available, does not have a process for that available. In looking at current municipal litigation trends, it's recommended from a due process perspective to have an appeal process available such that if someone is aggrieved by an administrative decision of the city, there's some sort of relief valve for that, for them to express their concern, to provide additional information, to have the decision be reviewed, short of forcing them to go into court. So one of the things that this does is it provides a review process for decisions that are made at the staff level below the city manager. The city manager would have the option of either hearing that appeal herself or referring it to the city's administrative hearing officer, who is a licensed attorney that's been trained in conducting administrative hearings and that conducts them regularly for our parking violations, administrative tows, and other administrative cases. For decisions that are issued at the city manager level or at a designated city manager, they would go directly to the administrative hearing officer. There's a process for those hearings to be conducted, for notice to be given, so the applicant has an opportunity to prepare and participate in that. There's also the opportunity to have a discussion, kind of a settlement conference, and to conditionally issue licenses where through the course of discussing with an applicant, we're able to identify means of mitigating the concerns that caused their license to initially be declined. So if we're able to work with them and address concerns that arose, or they're able to provide supplemental information, we could issue a license or conditionally issue a license after they have raised their concern. The second issue that's arisen from time to time is we get questions from applicants regarding on what basis are their applications evaluated. And so, for example, in our liquor code, we have provisions indicating that management representatives of liquor licensees have to be submitted for approval by the city, but there's not a great deal of specification in there regarding the basis on which they're evaluated. For special event permits, we have standards regarding if you're going to be encroaching in a city street or the number of people attending, but outside of those objective parameters, we don't give a great deal of information on the other sorts of factors that staff would look at in terms of determining whether or not to grant a given permit request. What this is intended to do is provide a series of factors that would give applicants more information about the nature of items that would be evaluated. It authorizes staff to get additional information where we have questions from an applicant and need to talk with them further about the process. The kind of things that are included in here, this was a list that was developed with the cooperation of all the city's departments to make sure we're having an all-inclusive list. We always look at public safety as a concern with regard to any application we receive, and the nature and provision of public safety to an event, whether if an applicant is engaging in more dangerous behavior, are they going to have on-site private EMS services? Are they going to have a standby ambulance? Is there a need for standby private security or for standby policing services? We look at whether they comply with the codes. We look at our history with similar types of events. If we had an applicant come in that wanted to do a monster truck rally in the downtown, we would learn from the city's experience with similar events in the past, and we would take precautions appropriately based on that. Some of our licenses require a criminal history check, but we don't really explain what we mean by that. If you are coming in to apply for a liquor license and to be the management representative, we would be concerned about violations that show a history of problems with alcohol or problems with dispensing alcohol to minors. We would not be concerned about traffic violations in the ordinary course outside of perhaps a DUI or something that demonstrates significant impairment in judgment. If you're coming in to apply for a taxi license, on the other hand, then we may be very concerned about the number of speeding tickets you have or the number of vehicle violations you have. So relevant offenses, relevant criminal history is what we would consider. Things that give us information about the applicant's judgment, decision-making, or character. There are times when licenses involve the exercise of significant amounts of judgment or require the keeping of careful records for tax purposes or for payment of sales tax to the city. In those cases, civil claims or civil judgments against an applicant may be relevant to demonstrate what their past history has been, how current those are, and whether they're going to be able to meet the standards that the City Council would expect of them. If we're looking at an event, we don't just look at that event, we look at what else is going on in the community at the same time. So if we have a number of people come in and apply for mass gathering events at the same time, And on a given afternoon in the city, we're going to consider how all of those interact and make sure that we have adequate resources to provide public safety to all of them, or that there will be adequate traffic controls in place. We look at the impact that an event or that a given permit application is going to have on city resources always, the date, time, and location. We look at whether they're providing adequate insurance or bonding if there's a potential for damage to public or private property. We look at the extent to which they're actually in their application explaining what's going on. We often, it may be surprising, but we often get applications that the application indicates you're required to provide a site plan showing the basic layout, and we get no indication of where the event is proposed to occur, or how many people are proposed to be in attendance, or how it's anticipated to be configured. We look at if an application is proposed to occur at a given premises, that we have access to make sure the premises is safe, either in advance of the event or after setup has occurred at the event. And we always, in the case of public events, we work with our building department and fire department to ensure that any inspections they feel are appropriate would be conducted and passed. We look at some of our applications, some of our events have a bigger impact on both city services and the public. And in the case of those applications, some city codes call out a time period for filing your application, so there's adequate review. We look at whether that has been complied with. We look at any impact on public facilities, if it's going to be conducted on a public street, if it's going to impact access to handicapped accessible parking spaces. And then we look at other relevant information that bears upon the application. One of the things this also contemplates is the ability for staff to look at an event, and if a given event requires 5 different licenses, it may not be practical for the applicant or the city to require an applicant to submit 5 different license applications. So one of the provisions in here would authorize the city manager to look at an event holistically, and if there's one permit that's going to really cover all of our interests associated with that we would have a mass gathering permit, for example, that would address the issues we're concerned about and not have to issue 4 other licenses or permits that address little subcomponents of that. Trying to take a more reasonable approach to how events are conducted and be responsive to some of the concerns that we've received. And then again, the ability to grant a conditional license where we work with an applicant and say, this will be approved provided that we can secure that you're going to have fencing to constrain the area where you're serving alcohol, or you're going to have a standby ambulance on scene, or you're going to have other appropriate public safety measures in place. So we are looking to both increase our transparency. These are the things that we look at with events, provide that information to applicants, and provide due process relief for those who feel aggrieved by a denial or a conditional issuance of a license, so they have a way to have that decision be reviewed and to provide additional information. As we've found in the past where we have an applicant and we've worked with them on a denial, oftentimes in the course of that discussion, we understand their concerns, they understand the city's concerns, and often they make changes in their event or changes in their application that cause it to later be approved. So this ordinance looks at all of those and combines them in the administrative hearing section of city code. We are still looking at bringing back an ordinance to simplify and consolidate some of our licensure, as was discussed at a committee of the whole meeting several months ago. That is in the works, and we anticipate bringing that in the next several months, but this addresses one narrow subset of it.
Any questions or comments regarding this motion? Alderman Noriko.
I just wanted to say I appreciate the proactive approach. I would hope that the public and the business community would recognize that and the city does want, to be, that overused phrase, business friendly, but that, this certainly is an effort to have an interactive process. Because if I were an applicant whose license had been denied, I'd certainly want information. Okay, how, is there any chance I can move this forward? What do I need to change? And so forth. So, thank you.
If I can address that briefly, we have had meetings with the DeKalb Chamber of Commerce regarding the events that they're planning, both for this fall and also for 2018. Mm-hmm. And we are setting up a master planning session with them to go through all of their events and try and simplify that process. Mm-hmm. We've had the same conversation with Mike Embry and some of the groups that he represents to try and have a more orderly process for the number of events that he wants to bring to the community next year. We have a similar process with Corn Fest. We are also working with other community organizations to try and identify their plans in advance and make sure that We're an easy stop on the process to a successful event and an early stop, so they're not dealing with issues late in the day. I would note that we do, because of the nature of this community and because we're a college community, we do from time to time get unusual applications for events that do pose greater public safety concerns. And because of that, we do have some rigor in our code about the types of events that are or are not permitted or the requirements that are in place. And those provisions have protected the city from events that were poorly planned or that presented significant public safety hazards in the past. So we don't shy away from the fact that our code indicates what it indicates, but we're also trying to have a broader and more understanding approach to events so we can work with applicants. I would encourage any groups or members of the community that are planning events or that are seeking a permit or license to come in and talk to us in advance, and we can make the process as smooth for them as possible.
And I would think that, as with so many situations, improving the communication will go a long way towards making the process smoother on both sides. So, thank you.
You know, one of the responsibilities accorded me as your mayor is the fact that I am the liquor commissioner. Well, what's impressed me is that it's just simply not my decision, and you haven't given me a lot of paperwork. A lot of folks within our staff have to sign off. Building and codes, law, community development, our attorney, Gene, our police chief, our fire chief, and that really helps me in making a determination that, hey, this application or this special license makes sense. So, thank you. Any other further discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Noriko?
Yes.
Verbic?
Yes.
Favor?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Fanouken?
Yes.
Markwart?
Yes.
Fagan?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
8 yes.
Dean, would this need a second reading waiver?
If the council wishes, otherwise we'd return it at the next meeting.
Okay, is it the wish of the council to waive second reading on this? If not, if so, would anybody care to make that motion? If not, we'll bring it back. Okay, we will bring that back then at our next meeting. Thank you, Dean. Okay, a new or unfinished business. I don't believe we have any tonight, unless someone has an item. So we move to reports, communications, and I would start with our First Ward Alderman, Dave Jacobson.
No report.
Alderman Fanouken.
Just a couple of quick items. I just want to report that NIU held an open house today for prospective students. They had over 2,000 visitors to campus. So, and I was told that's about 300 more than they had at a similar date last year. I want to commend Gene and his police department on quickly getting to the facts on Friday afternoon shooting and knocking down the rumors that were floating around. And then also for the fire department historicals group, they have their pancake breakfast this Sunday at Station 1, I think 9 to noon. Is that right, Jim?
No, it's actually 8 to noon,
8 to
along
noon.
with the open house for the fire department.
All right, thank you. That's it.
Alderman Markward.
I will be there for pancakes.
Just down the street from you, isn't it?
It is walking distance, so I can walk it off on the way there and back. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate all that the fire department does for us. Other than that, no report.
Okay. Alderman Fagan.
No report.
Alderman Noriko.
No report.
Alderman Verbic.
No report.
Alderman Favor.
No report.
I do have one report, and it's simply this. Under communications, I'm saying something tonight that I've talked to a number of you individually on. I've certainly talked with our city manager. I'm not satisfied with our communications totally in this city. There are so many things that happen that we are doing that are positive. You talked about the positive light, Mike, earlier on, that just simply don't get reported. And I'm not casting any aspersions to our media folks. You do a great job. but you're not able to report everything good that we do each and every meeting, or the good things that come out of our commissions and boards. And so what I've asked Anne Marie to do, and she's in the process now of hiring a replacement for Lauren Stott, who was our management analyst who left, and as you recall, Lauren had a good communications background and did a nice job, to see if we can find somebody that has those skills. Beyond that, we've talked with Northern Illinois University. I have a couple of people who would like to do a public affairs show on Channel 14 on community cable. I think we need to do that. That would be another avenue. Some of the new screens that you've seen in this room are a result of my talking to Anne Marie and Mark Thorson, our IT director, about screens that now we can see, or at least see a little bit better. We need to do a good job, a better job of communications, and I think as a council, what we need to do is to work together to see that that this is done. Because, gosh, we do a lot of good things in this city, and we talk about a lot of good things on this council, and sometimes people just don't know about it. So if that's a goal of mine, another goal, then so be it. But I sense a consensus on the part of staff and hopefully on the council that we want to revamp, not revamp so much, but just uptick that. And I hope we're able to do that over the next several months and several years. Okay, Sue Herman, our city clerk, any communications or report?
No report.
Dean Frieders.
Just a couple briefly. Alderman Marquardt had referred a resident to the city staff that was having a concern about dogs at large in her neighborhood. We had a meeting this afternoon with Crime-Free Housing, the police department, myself, and the resident, and we're working through her concerns. I would encourage others in the community, if you have a concern about aggressive dogs or aggressive dog behavior off property, please contact, in the case of an emergency, please contact the police department, call 911 and report it. Outside of that, please feel free to reach out to the police department non-emergency number or Crime-Free Housing, and we will follow up and try to take appropriate action. Second, we had homecoming over the weekend, and we had an amazing response from our police and fire department in response to an influx of visitors to the community. A lot of calls for public service, and both departments did an amazing job handling that. In particular, with the leadership of Chief Lowry, we have a significant amount of support we receive from the state police and other public safety agencies that come in to help keep the community safe. And our department does an amazing job of dispatching and managing all of those resources and working with the community. Finally, I don't know if the council knows, but our staff, our administrative staff at the fire department, up to and including Chief Hicks, all maintain their paramedic licensure. And that's something that isn't the case in every community. The recent unfortunate event that Alderman Finucane had referenced, what turned out to be an accidental shooting in the community, that showed up at the doorstep of Fire Station 1 at a time when all three of our frontline ambulances were out in service. So when we talk about the need to have multiple reliable vehicles in the fire department and the need to have adequate staffing, all of our ambulances were out of quarters when someone that was shot literally walked up to the fire station. And so our fourth ambulance, a backup ambulance that's not ordinarily in service, was pressed into service, driven by Chief Hicks and staffed by Deputy Chief McMaster and Deputy Chief Zarek. So I'm not sure if the ambulance handled well with the weight of all the brass in it, but all three of those individuals are certified paramedics. They all maintain their licensure. They all keep their continuing education. They lead the department from the front, and they handled what very easily could have been a life-ending call and saved a life. And I think that's commendable.
Thank you, Dean. City Manager Anne Marie Gora.
Thank you, Mayor. The one thing I want to update both the council and the community on is my monthly meetings that I have with the NIU Student Leaders Group when school's in session. So I had one of those meetings last week. The key things that we talked about was we're planning for the next NIU student event, and this is, as you may recall, where we got some great, incredible feedback from the students last February. We're hosting this one in November. It is going to be in the Annie Glidden North neighborhood, and the topic is going to be Annie Glidden North Revitalization Plan. So our goal is to get additional feedback from the students as far as issues of concern, suggestions that they have. So a lot of the feedback that is happening at these community meetings, but this is going to be specifically targeted to NIU students. I'm going to work with the students like I did after the last student event and debrief with them, and then we're going to ask the students to come to the council and present to all of you. So you're going to be hearing firsthand from the students what their comments and observations were as participating in this event. And we're probably going to target January of making that presentation to council, because by the time we debrief with them and the break between semesters, it'll probably be in January. As an outgrowth of that meeting, Christine Wang is one of the students that has actually come to, I think, just about, it's come to every single one of my meetings with the exception of one she couldn't make. So after the meeting we had talked, and she told me about the hashtag No Shame campaign, and I explained that I invited her to come to council to make the presentation to all of you. I also just want you to know that I extended that invitation to other students and will be encouraging them, if there's an issue of concern for the community that they think would be beneficial for you as a council to hear and for the community here, they will come to the meeting. So I'm going to keep this like as a regular item now on my agenda, encouraging them to come, because I think it's great experience for them, public speaking, and it also is part of the community partnership. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Police Chief Gene Lowry.
I just wanted to echo what Attorney Frieders had said. It's been characterized that the homecoming events over this past weekend were some of the safest. Our deputy chief indicated to me in his 24 years of service to the city, it was the most safe and least violent event of that kind in his recollection. So that was a positive. However, I do want to state that last Sunday evening at about 8:30, we had another shooting incident. That incident occurred near University Village. That incident we expect to fully resolve in a successful manner and arrest the offender. However, there has been a dramatic uptick in gun violence in our community and in other communities around us, like Rockford in particular. You may recall Rockford was recently named in the top 10 most violent cities in the United States per capita. The good news, and unfortunately the optic will always be on violence because that is what it is. That's what causes the most harm. The good news is that during the first 3 quarters of calendar year 2017, so up through September, we're seeing a fairly dramatic decrease in property and violent crimes other than crimes involving gun violence. So that is one positive, but the gun violence is a definite concern in our community and it has to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Finance Director Molly Talkington.
We've just continued more budget reviews with departments this week.
Okay. Deputy Fire Chief Jim Zurich.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to express our thanks from the department for the express of how we did over the weekend. It was a busy weekend for us. Saturday, the numbers I remember were 43 calls in 24 hours, so they were busy. I also would like to once again mention, Alderman Finucane kind of stole my thunder a little. Our open house this weekend, Sunday, the 15th, 8 to 5 for Fire Prevention Month, along with the Historic Foundation's Pancake Breakfast.
Thank you, Jim. Community Development Director Joellen Charlton.
Just one quick item. I know we had a pretty thorough overview of the Annie Glidden North project, and one of the things that was coming out of those meetings was potential early action items, and it's been interesting to have a continuing dialogue with other community members and staff members in particular. Chief Lowry had forwarded some recommendations about lighting and tree trimming. So we are, the dialogue is there. We're starting the process and starting to think proactively about things that can make a difference today, and we'll continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Joellen. Public Works Director Tim Holdeman.
Thank you, Mayor. I know at this time of the year, it's understandable that our residents are becoming fatigued with all the construction that's going on, so I want to give an update. The city's sponsored street maintenance program is completed. It was initiated on July 5th, and 3 months later, we have completed the entire $1 million program. The water main project continues. We have installed water mains in 4 different projects. We are now installing the service lines that run from the mains to the house. That project is going well and will be completed on schedule. Our Kishwaukee Bike Path project continues to advance with the placement of the aggregate and with the asphalt coming behind that. We did encounter some unforeseen conditions as we were laying the aggregate. We found what we think was an old dump of sidewalks and broken curbs. So we've had to excavate that and remove that from the site. We're monitoring the additional costs associated with that closely to make sure that we don't go over the cost of the projects. But that's an example of some unforeseen conditions that we experience in these type of projects. And lastly, I want to give an update on the Illinois 23 IDOT project for resurfacing. This is a project that goes from Sycamore Road, where it turns into 4th Street, all the way up to Illinois 64. The DeKalb portion of that will be, most of it will be done by the mid-November deadline. The entire project was anticipated to be done by that time, but the portion north of Oakland, out by Hy-Vee, will not be completed this year. The portion south of that will be completed. Where we stand right now is we have one final course of pavement that has to be put down to match up with the top of the manholes. So as it exists right now, there are manholes that are exposed by 2 or 3 inches, and it becomes a little bit of treacherous driving. So we want to ask drivers and our residents to continue to be patient and navigate those in a safe way. This project was, the Illinois 23 resurfacing project was planned, conceived, funded, contractors procured, and it's being managed through the state. Everything from the beginning to end is managed by the state. The city does not have an active role in managing this project. So the unforeseen conditions that they are experiencing, the city did not have any opportunity to be a part of the decision-making that may have been called into question associated with that. That notwithstanding, the part of 23 north of Oakland will be done next spring and into the summer. So as always, if our residents have any question about state projects, city projects, anything going on with regard to public works, they can call us at 815-748-2040, and we'll be happy to help you respond. Also, we would ask that you check the city website under the Public Works tab, construction projects, for a weekly update, which has been going on throughout the summer on all of our construction projects. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you, staff, for those reports. I'm told that we do need to recess for executive session. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
Mayor, I apologize. Could we read the exemptions?
I beg your pardon?
We need to read the exemptions as a component of the motion. Would request that the motion.
Oh, yes,
reflect-
okay. Read the titles. Okay, yes. Number 1, approval to hold an executive session to discuss the purchase or lease of real property as provided for in 5 ILCS 120/2C5. And number 2, approval to hold an executive session to discuss personnel as provided for in 5 ILCS 120/2C1. Repeat that motion and second, please.
Motion?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Verbic,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Fanouken,
Yes.
Markwart,
Yes.
Fagan,
Yes.
Noriko,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
8 yes.
Approved. We will now recess for executive session.